Hi, I'm Father Jim Forson, and I'd like to share with you some reflections on the Gospel of the 32nd Sunday in Ordinary Time. And the Gospel is about the story of the 10 bridesmaids who are waiting late at night for the bridal party to arrive, and they, with their lit torches, would lead them toward the wedding reception. And then, as it turns out, 5 of them have enough oil, and the other 5 don't, and the ones who don't have to go off to buy some oil. And when they're gone, the bridal party arrives, and so off they all go for the reception, and they close the doors. And then later on, the 5 foolish bridesmaids come, and everybody's gone. And they go and knock on the door and are told, go away. We don't know who you are. And we can read that story and almost feel a little sorry for those bridesmaids. Like, come on, open up the door, let them in, let them join in. It wasn't that huge mistake, but that, of course, is not the point of the story. As Jesus said, we know not the day or the hour. So be ready, be expected. And what comes to mind is that idea of the coming of the Lord at the end of time, or even in our own lifetime. We have to be prepared and ready for that moment when Jesus arrives. And that's true. But there's a deeper truth in that story, a more painful truth in that story. And that is the moment that those bridesmaids had been preparing for passed them by, and they could never get it back. That moment is gone, it's lost. And I think there's, in all our lives, the realization that from time to time, we could have seized a moment. We were supposed to have done a certain thing at a certain time, and, and we blew it. We didn't say what we were supposed to say in that moment or do what we were supposed to do in that moment. And now that moment's over. And we can find ourselves filled with regret that I let that slip past me. Now, I think of this priest I know, and, we know each other for about 10, 15 years or so. And he was always telling me about how sick he was, but, he looked pretty good to me. But we had talked back and forth for months about getting together for lunch, and we'd missed each other and dithered and so on. But finally, we got a lunch date, and I went out to lunch with him, and we had a good time. And a week later, he died. And I was shocked. I didn't think he was in that bad a health. But I was so grateful that I had gone out to lunch with him, as I had promised. Because if he had died and I hadn't, oh, I would have been so angry with myself and so frustrated. Because there are other times in my life when I didn't take advantage of a moment, of an event. I think of this one, oh gosh, this one fine, fine priest I knew who died, and we heard of his funeral. And I had something else going on in my life at the time, and something big, and I had to go to that, and so I missed the funeral. And now, years later, I can't remember at all what that thing that was so important and pressing was. All I do remember is I wasn't there for his funeral. And he was a good priest. He helped me a lot. And I regret so much not being there with him in that moment and honoring him with my presence. I think all of us maybe have those moments where we blew it. We should have said something and we didn't, done something and we failed to do so. Times in which I should have said, I'm sorry, but now that ship has sailed, or thank you, and sent a note of gratitude. And years later, we still regret not doing it. You know, priest I know, Father Tim, tells me about how he knows a lot of alcoholics who, they drinking ruined their lives, and they hit rock bottom, and finally at rock bottom they realize what now they have to do, and they start pulling themselves back together again. and trying to reconcile with their children or with their wife. But it's too late. That ship has sailed. There's so much pain, so much hurt, so much neglect that has gone on. There's no bringing it back. What pain. How painful that is. So I wonder, what do we do? Do we just live with a regret? That's it? Well, I read this one essay that I'd like to read to you that gave a good idea about how we live with those moments. The name of this essay is Bless Me, Father, for I Have Sinned. Anne Patchett, in her book Commonwealth, wrote, "Life was a series of losses. It was other things too, better things, but the losses were as solid as the earth itself. What have been my losses? Was it when my father died? Then, years later, my mother? Was it my health, my youth, or my innocence? Yes, all these, but my greatest losses came from the failure to love enough, to love more than enough, to love not just lovers, but all those whom God placed in my path, to love more than enough that relative who could just talk on and forever, that old woman, so lonely, so wanting company, that fourth grade child who had lost his father and yearned for another. I could have given them all more love, but didn't. I could have given more time to my sisters when they were growing, to my parents as I was growing. I wish now that I had given them all of them, more of me. What sadness that I failed to do so, failed to look more deeply into the people about me, to see their need. Such blindness, such loss. But not today. Today, I take upon myself the persona of Jesus Christ, who, as John's Gospel says, lost none of those given to him. I hear the Spirit. Now, this moment, lose no one. Today, we lose no one.